Some betrayals come softly, wrapped in smiles, disguised as teamwork. Others hit you like a slap you never saw coming. My name is Isla, and until a few months ago, I thought ambition and fairness could coexist. I believed if you worked hard, stayed honest, and didn't play dirty, your efforts would speak for themselves. But that was before Declan Maris decided that my success was his threat. When I first joined Crichton Systems, I was a quiet newcomer, the one who took notes during meetings, stayed late to finish reports, and never missed a deadline. Declan was my team lead, confident, well-connected, the kind of man who carried himself like he already owned a corner office. He had that practiced charm people mistake for leadership. I didn't. I had data, strategy, and ideas, real ones, the kind that could change how we worked. When our company announced a new initiative, Project Nova, a cutting-edge AI integration for enterprise clients, Declan handpicked a few people for his special task force. I wasn't one of them. That stung, but I didn't complain. Instead, I started helping on the edges, offering analysis, building small predictive models, doing the kind of invisible labor that made others look good. Eventually, my contributions started drawing attention. It began with a single email. The VP of Operations copied me directly on a message thanking me for a feature suggestion that boosted performance by 8%. Then, another executive mentioned my name during a town hall. "We're seeing great innovation from the Nova team, especially from Isla." That's when Declan's tone shifted. He went from polite to clipped, from great work to you might want to run things by me next time. He started nitpicking, my formatting, my tone in emails, even how I phrased ideas in meetings. Once, after I presented an update that impressed the director, Declan smiled tight and said, "Let's remember who owns this project, shall we?" I told myself he was just feeling pressure, but pressure doesn't justify sabotage. One Monday morning, I walked into our shared workspace and found my access to the Nova folder revoked. When I asked IT, they told me Declan had reassigned ownership to Kellen Fry, a developer who'd been struggling for months. Said he needed to streamline workflows, the IT manager said. I felt my stomach drop. Streamline? He'd erased my name from the documentation, reassigned my tasks, and restructured the presentation deck, the one I'd been refining for 6 weeks, under Kellen's account. I stared at my screen, my work gone, and realized what had happened. Declan hadn't just sidelined me, he'd erased me. I wanted to scream, to send a furious email, to march into HR and expose him. But something stopped me. Declan was smart, too smart to leave obvious proof. He had allies in mid-management, people who laughed too loudly at his jokes and owed him favors. If I went in guns blazing, I'd look emotional, reactionary. And in corporate politics, emotion is the quickest way to lose credibility. So I did the one thing Declan never expected me to do. I went quiet. I smiled during meetings, congratulated Kellen on his progress, and acted as though I was stepping back gracefully. I watched Declan relax, watched him brag about Nova's milestones to senior executives, watched his name start to circulate in emails about leadership potential. And while he was busy celebrating, I started rebuilding my own version of Nova, in secret. Every night after work, I stayed behind, using leftover access credentials, fragments of data I'd archived before he cut me off. I refined the model, enhanced the interface, fixed flaws Declan hadn't even noticed. Where his version was clunky, mine was sleek. Where his relied on old metrics, mine predicted new trends with near perfect accuracy. I called my version Nova X. There was risk in every keystroke. If anyone discovered I was using company systems without authorization, I could be fired. But I knew something Declan didn't. Our CEO, Mara Keene, was coming back from a 6-month sabbatical, and she loved live innovation demos. She'd built Crichton on rogue ideas, ones management thought were too risky. I had one shot to show her something that couldn't be ignored. The chance came during the Quarterly Innovation Summit, an internal event where select teams pitched product prototypes to executives. Declan, of course, was headlining. He strutted onto the stage like he was born under the spotlight, Kellen standing behind him like a nervous shadow. Their demos started smoothly. Graphs, buzzwords, polished slides. Declan had memorized his lines, peppering in the kind of corporate charisma that made investors swoon. But I could see it, the gaps, the numbers that didn't add up, the features he was promising but hadn't actually built. I waited until the applause faded, until Mara smiled politely and said, "Impressive work. Anyone else want to share something?" My hand went up before my brain could stop me. The room turned. Declan's expression froze, part shock, part disbelief. Isla, he said, forcing a laugh, I think we're wrapped for this segment. I think there's something you'll want to see, I said. Something built from the same foundation as Project Nova, but optimized for real-world scalability. Mara gestured for me to continue. Go ahead, Miss Varen. I walked up, plugged in my drive, and launched Nova X. The interface pulsed to life, adaptive, intuitive, alive. I explained how the predictive engine learned from real-time data instead of static models, how it cut processing time by 40%, how it identified user behavior patterns before they even emerged. The numbers spoke louder than I could. The boardroom that had been politely attentive was now rapt. Mara leaned forward, eyes gleaming. And this was developed under the Nova framework? I nodded. It began there, but when certain components were reassigned, I continued refining independently, after hours. A murmur rippled across the room. Declan's jaw tightened. She's exaggerating, he said quickly. This is our codebase. She's repackaged our data and slapped a new name on it. I smiled. Actually, I documented every version iteration and timestamp. I can show the audit logs. My signatures are embedded in the prototype metadata. I clicked open the verification window. My name appeared across the build history like a signature carved in glass. Mara's gaze flicked to Declan. Is that true? He faltered. I might have delegated some of the... Delegated? Mara's tone sliced through his excuse. Or reassigned? The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Declan's face flushed deep crimson. Kellen stared at the floor. Mara turned to me. I'd like to schedule a full review of your model, Miss Varen. Effective immediately. You'll lead a task force to bring Nova X to market readiness. I blinked. Lead? Yes. You'll report directly to me. That was the moment Declan's expression cracked, a flicker of panic beneath his composure. He tried to laugh it off, to clap me on the shoulder and mutter something about team wins, but it rang hollow. The hierarchy had shifted, and he knew it. Over the next few weeks, the transformation was brutal and swift. Declan was stripped of project ownership. His reassignment was public but polite, transitioning to support operations. Meanwhile, I was given his office, his budget, his team. The same people who once tiptoed around him now came to me for direction. But power, I learned, doesn't erase betrayal. It only reframes it. One evening, after most of the floor had emptied, Declan appeared at my door. He looked smaller somehow, the confidence gone, replaced by a kind of bruised disbelief. "Congratulations," he said, his voice brittle. "Guess you got what you wanted." I looked up from my desk. What I wanted was recognition for my work. What you wanted was control. He scoffed. "You think this place will stay loyal to you? You'll see. They love winners, until the next one shows up." "Then I'll keep earning it," I said. He stared for a long moment, then muttered, "You always were too calm for your own good." "Calm," I said, standing, "is just what it looks like when someone's already won." He left without another word. By the end of the quarter, Nova X became the flagship project of Crichton Systems. Our clients tripled. Mara promoted me again, head of strategic innovation. I found myself in meetings I once only dreamed of attending, my name on patents, my ideas shaping the company's next generation of tools. But success didn't feel like vindication at first. It felt like survival. Because even as I rose, I couldn't forget the lesson Declan had burned into me, that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. That sometimes the smartest revenge isn't shouting the truth, it's letting results speak until the lie collapses under its own weight. Months later, I ran into Kellen in the cafeteria. He looked embarrassed, but grateful. "I didn't know he'd done that," he said quietly. "I thought he was trying to help me get a break." "I know," I said. "He used both of us." He hesitated. "I'm glad you didn't let him win." I smiled. "Neither did you. You showed up. You kept working. That's how real teams work." That night, I went home and opened the first build of Nova X, the one I'd coded in secret. I stared at the blinking cursor, the endless lines of code, and thought about how close I'd come to losing everything. Not because I wasn't good enough, but because I trusted someone who feared what I could become. In the corporate world, betrayal isn't loud. It's quiet, dressed in compliments and CC'd emails. It waits for you to underestimate it. But once you learn how to spot it, you also learn how to use it. When people ask me how I managed to turn a sabotage into a promotion, I tell them the truth. Revenge doesn't have to be cruel. Sometimes it's just better execution. The day Declan officially started reporting to me, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. He avoided eye contact during meetings, speaking only when necessary. The man who once lectured me about respecting hierarchy now sat 2 seats below me on the org chart. After our first team briefing, I pulled him aside. "Declan," I said, keeping my tone even, "if you have feedback, I expect you to bring it to me directly. I value your experience." He nodded stiffly. "Of course." I leaned closer. "And Declan, don't ever mistake my silence for submission again." For the first time, he didn't have an answer. I walked back to my desk, my heels clicking against the floor like punctuation marks to an unspoken victory. It wasn't triumph I felt, not really. It was balance. Justice, maybe. The kind that doesn't need applause, because the truth already took center stage. Looking back, I realize that's how all revolutions start, quietly, in the mind of someone underestimated. The moment you stop waiting for permission to be great, you stop being their subordinate. And that's the secret no one tells you. The most powerful revenge is competence so undeniable that even your enemies are forced to acknowledge it. Declan taught me that by trying to destroy me. And every time he forwards me a report now, I can't help but smile at the subject line. 2. Isla Veron, Director.
You've just stepped into her revenge side, where every wound finds its justice, and every silence ends with truth. If her story struck a chord, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Another secret waits in the next video. See how her revenge begins.